Hi, I'm Ellen and I'm 22. It started for me when I was kind of around 17, 18, and I'd always had very painful periods as a young teenager, between kind of like 14, 15, 16. But I didn't anticipate that my symptoms were a lot worse than the average individual's periods. And I kind of just put it down to maybe I'm just overworking it, maybe this is what everyone feels. And I was really struggling with chronic fatigue, with nausea, with bloating, with brain fog, with all of the standard things that come alongside with endometriosis. It was an odd journey for me, so it is worth noting I'm 22. I got diagnosed a lot younger than the majority of people do. Normally women, it kind of takes about 7 or 8 years to get a diagnosis, so I was very lucky. But I had a very good relationship with my GP at the time, who knows me and my character and understood that I'm not the kind of person that would kind of whinge about nothing or would make a big deal over nothing. And luckily with her support, I was able to push through the process quite quickly of trying different hormone therapies, trying the pill, trying different variations of the pill, none of that working, trying the coil, that not working, and that then led to having laparoscopic surgery to have a look, see what's going on, and that was when they discovered a number of cysts on my ovaries. So I was diagnosed through surgery, which isn't necessarily always the case. Some people go through a lot of different ultrasounds and scans. I had those two, nothing came up, so it was then surgery and look, endometriosis. I think I ignored it for a really long time, and I refused to accept that I had this condition that would realistically really impact my life. It took, actually until quite recently, it took years for me to come to terms with the fact that I have less energy than the majority of people, and I have to structure my life very, very carefully around that time of the month when I know that I won't be able to get out of bed, when I know that I have no energy, I feel nauseous, I feel hormonal, the slightest little thing will make me cry. And I think it's kind of been actually the start of this year, which was, years since I was diagnosed, where I've gone, you need to start really looking at yourself and saying, you have this condition, it doesn't make you weaker, it isn't a bad thing, but you do have to work harder to succeed. And that's been a challenge. I'm an entrepreneur, and it's a very male-dominated environment. It's filled with white, straight men in suits, which is hard when you have a condition that means that men often struggle to talk about that sort of thing, so they can't understand it, they can't empathise because they just don't know what you're talking about. But it's an environment where you want to be all things to all people and switched on and driven and committed all the time. And I can't do that as an individual. And I think that's why I've struggled with it for such a long time, because it made me feel weaker or more fragile, and I'm not the kind of person that is. Relationships are difficult as well. It's not something that I open up about with partners, with friends, because it's something that does make me feel weaker and more fragile and vulnerable. And often when you open up to someone and say, hey, I really struggle with this, they kind of bubble wrap you and treat you differently. And I don't like that. So it takes a lot for me to get to the point where I can have a very open and honest conversation with somebody about how this impacts my life, what this means for my relationship with that individual, and how sometimes I do need to lean on them for that support. I've tried lots of different diets, exercising more, exercising less, walking, not walking, getting more sleep, getting less sleep, trying different supplements. I've kind of tried it all because there's no cure, so you have to do what you can to find ways to help yourself. I find that working with an anti-inflammatory diet, that really helps me. So trying to kind of stick to the Mediterranean diet side of things, it's better. Things are better when I do that and don't eat cake and ice cream. Also cutting out dairy, that's really helped as well. I think for me the first step is being able to talk about it with people, but B, it's almost about changing your expectations and changing other people's expectations of you at times. And I think support from employers or support from people that you work with is vital, because the workplace is often where you struggle the most because you feel rubbish. And often it's an environment where you don't necessarily feel like you can open up about these sorts of issues because they're women's issues and it's not a suitable thing for the workplace. That needs to change immediately. It's viewed in lots of different ways across different places, across Europe, across the world, but it's not discussed at that higher level, and there isn't the time being put into research to better understand ways in which we can help people with this condition. It's very doom and gloom when you get diagnosed. There's no cure, you've just got to learn to live with it. And I think there needs to be more infrastructure to help people live with it. It's one thing saying try lots of different hormone therapies, but the emotional toll that takes on you is huge. And I think we need to learn to support each other better and help each other work through it instead of just saying, here's your diagnosis, off you go.